But yeah, we're talking about these facilities were robust. The whole thing about hydrogen blowing them apart is just a pipe dream. It would not happen.
I mean, see, this is what I like about what you got here is you're not just saying this like the container couldn't handle it or whatever. You're showing a picture of it, and it's like, whoa, that is a big door.
Yeah. Well, the San Francisco quake is all the way down here at the bottom. It's like 15 pixels off the bottom. 8.4 is SAR bomba. That's if you detonated the biggest nuke detonated, it'd be an 8.4 if you did it underground. So that is something to really scratch your head about and say, well, was this earthquake real or not? Or
you got a good point there. You got a good point there about bringing up the earthquake in San Francisco, where you have pieces of road falling from the sky, because it was knocked down roads and did all kinds of stuff. And here we got one that's hugely bigger, and you don't have any damage. Yes, it's impossible, because here we have wood-framed houses that are stucco wood-framed houses, mostly, predominantly. There's no cracks in the stucco. None of them are knocked out of plumb. None of them lost their balconies or anything. It's just this pretty neighborhood just getting ready to get pounded by the tsunami coming in. Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, now I'm gonna get on to the military operation where they destroyed Fukushima. There were prior to this earthquake, Japan had offered to enrich uranium for Iran, and Israel didn't take too kindly to that. At least as far as I turned up in my investigation, Israel wasn't too happy about it. So they immediately set up front companies masquerading as security companies, and one of these securities got access to Fukushima and basically came in with 1,000-pound cameras that looked just like gun-type nuclear weapons, convinced the plant operators that they really were security cameras, got them in there, split, planted Stuxnet, and left. That's where we're going with this. And that's why I made very, very clear here that that reactor 4 had been defueled and had the core taken out of it, and it exploded anyway. Boy, talking about a smoking gun or the elephant in the room, it's kind of hard to have a nuclear explosion when it's not running. I mean, that's like the big hello, wake up. Yes, it's the building. It is the building 7. Cameras that they brought in for security, which I'm sure had some kind of camera in it, but when you actually show the breakdown of the nuclear firing device, and it looks exactly like the camera. So that's something we want to make sure we go to. If everybody goes down to link number 32 all the way down on the bottom called Magna BSP's camera, click on that. And it's going to pull up 2 diagrams of gun-type nuclear weapons and Magna BSP's camera. So what we have here is, this. If you look on the bottom of this camera, I'm only estimating the weight, and I actually am underestimating because this thing probably actually weighs closer to 5,000 pounds. What the heck kind of camera is that? When you get people's trust, that's true. They'll believe anything, and so here's this company that just hates the Arab terrorists, and they're just the victims, and so you just trust them, and I guess it didn't dawn on the Japanese that offering Iran enriched uranium might make a little enemy there. So here's a really important thing. When we're getting back to the 3 different epicenters being to this quake, I had wondered how on earth they managed to get 3 different epicenters, because what I believe they did, and obviously I can't prove it unless I talk to Netanyahu, but what I believe they did for their operation is they planted these nuclear weapons inside of Fukushima. They planted the Stuxnet virus. They dropped a nuke off the coast of Japan. Link number 16, and that's a military briefing with Secretary of Defense William Cohen back in 1997. Now, I had heard about scalar weapons and EM technology and all this other stuff and how destructive they could be, but I didn't believe it.
because I had a really good technical background, and it just sounded like it was fantasy. And the reason why it sounded like fantasy to me was because I could only relate to what I'd been taught and what I'd experienced with and everything else. Well, so when reviewing the seismic data for that supposed 9.0, though, I knew that there were like 3 small simultaneous inland epicenters. You can tell that. That's why I went over that first chart. There were 3 epicenters. You don't have 3 epicenters on one quake. That just doesn't happen. And so I knew right from the beginning that these quakes were artificially created, and I didn't know if Japan was doing nuclear tests and Israel got wind of them. In this article, this military briefing from Secretary of Defense William Cohen, he stated, here's a quote, "Others are engaged in even an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes and volcanoes remotely through their use of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of ingenious minds out there that are at work finding ways in which they can wreak terror upon other nations. It's real, and that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts, and that's why this is so important." William S. Cohen, in April 28, 1997. And what was left unsaid by William Cohen, obviously, is that these systems would have been developed by DARPA and owned by America first. He's worried about other people having it, obviously, but obviously we have it. We're always the first ones with everything like this. I mean, maybe the Russians, but definitely we had our own systems at that time. And what is spooky about this is the fact that he said this in 1997, which means that all the way back in 1997, we had equipment that could set off volcanoes and trigger earthquakes, and he knew about it and stated it in a military briefing. Well, we're now 14 or 15 years down the road. Obviously, we've gotten better at it. And now I'm going to say these 3 quakes with different seismic signatures occurring at different locations at the exact same time and getting recorded at the same quake, as the same quake, most likely were triggered by an EM weapon. And that is how they got the timing they needed to set up a tsunami bomb, to set up, to activate Stuxnet. You know, they had everything ready to go. This is 100% false flag right from the start. What I believe is that Japan is currently under a nuclear threat. I think what they did was they said, you know, you're going to enrich uranium for Iran. You're now our enemy. And we can't have people running around and supporting our worst enemy, Iran. You're on par with them. So what we're going to do, we're going to blow up Fukushima. We're going to give you a really bad tsunami so that you know that we're serious. We've got 5 other nukes off the coast of Japan, and we're going to set those off. If you don't say that that earthquake, that little 6.8 was a 9.0 out in the ocean, if you don't say that Fukushima blew up because you were negligent, if you don't go through down this list and say exactly what we want you to, we're going to set off other nukes and wipe out Tokyo with a tsunami. We're going to wipe out other port cities or other ocean cities with a tsunami. I really think that Japan is being held a nuclear hostage. It's the only thing that can explain why they're going along with this. Japan knows that those reactors are gone, and yet they're not saying anything about it. They're not saying a thing. They know that Reactor 4 was defueled, and they're not saying a thing. They know all of this stuff, that it couldn't have happened, that they lost control of their nuclear facility, and the thing blew up all on its own. And yeah, they know all this, and they're being quiet, and there's got to be a reason why. And the only reason would be a continued threat.